welcome! I'm out in the garden today, just taking a walk around and enjoying the beginnings of spring. I have the hellebore beside me, flowering nicely, and just to the right of me, or maybe it's your left, I'm not sure. On this side, we have the daffodils, already 18 inches tall. They'll soon be flowering, only a few weeks to wait. Now I know I've seen some snowdrops. Let's go and find them. Before we find the snowdrops, I have found a purple primrose that I planted several years ago, with many comments of the fact, oh, that'll never last, you'll only get one season from it. Well, not only has it lasted very nicely, it's actually spreading. There are more young plants of it here, lower down the hedgerow. Oh, and over to this side. It survived very nicely and is expanding and is quite unusual. Generally all the wild primroses are yellow, so it's lovely to have this little splash of purple. This is a favourite plant of mine, these beautiful lush variegated leaves. I can't remember its name. I will find it and put it on the screen for you. I'm terrible at remembering plant names. Lily, how could I forget? I like this one lots, and I have quite a few dotted around the garden. And I like it for its beautiful, variegated, lush, fleshy leaves. In the summer it will put up stems with a very bland flower and then a cluster of bright red berries. So it seeds itself around the place very nicely, which I'm glad about because I love it. So free seeds and free plants popping up is wonderful. I do occasionally get plain leaved ones appearing and I just weed them out to encourage the variegation. Sitting in the wet. Sitting in the wet. Another specimen of my favourite plant, and the snowdrops is what we were looking for. There's a few, there's some more behind me here. A lush clump of snowdrops, very nice. I have a nice cluster of snowdrops covering quite a decent area, but they're not in the best place for any plant. When I planted them years ago it was fine, but now this space has changed as the pine trees around me have grown and it's become very dry and very shady and not a good place for any other plants. Year on year I dig up 5 or 6 little clumps of these and move them to other nice sunny spaces around the garden. If you're planting snowdrops, you should plant them in the green, which means when it's actually already growing and you can see it. Snowdrop dried bulbs do not do well, if at all. So if you're buying snowdrops to put in your garden, always buy a little pot from the garden nurseries with snowdrops already growing and plant them out, and they should come back for you year after year after year, developing a bigger and denser cluster as the years go on, which you can then dig up, separate and spread around a bit more, but only dig them up and move them like this when they're already up and growing and have little flowers on is the perfect time to move them to a new place. Most plants don't like being moved when they're in peak growing season, but for snowdrops that's the best time to move them. Here's a little clump I moved a few years ago, looking much healthier with lots of flowers. Oh, can I get in? No! Oh, there we go. Oh, it's been munched. Has it been munched? It's been munched. This particular daffodil plant is very well advanced. I can see it's just about to open this bud, but sadly it's had a little tiny munch by some slug or beetle, so I'll leave that one to flower out here. Its neighbouring bud, on the other hand, is also nearly ready, and I can't resist. I'm going to pick it and take it in the house and stick it in a vase, and it'll be open in a couple of days with a bright yellow splash of sunshine indoors. It's supposed to be raining the rest of this week, so I might as well have this indoors to enjoy. Actually going to take its friend. I found a second daffodil, so now I have two. This rosemary shrub has been putting out lots of new growth, so we have nice 3-inch long tips of lovely fresh green rosemary. So I think some roast potatoes are called for. I'm going to pick a handful of the nice fresh shoots and roast some potatoes for supper tonight. It's also flowering. I don't know if we can see a flowery stem. There's a flowery bit. I don't know. They're tiny flowers, little tiny purple flowers, so I don't know how well the camera's picking them up. Oh, it smells gorgeous. Lovely. So let's have some of these green rosemary tips. Not only will this give me fresh rosemary to go with my roast potatoes today, it'll encourage the plant to get bushy, because each tip that I break off will encourage it to make little side shoots instead of one long growing stem. Wonderful, nice handful of rosemary to go in my potatoes. Oh, I wish you had smell-o-vision.
Having had a lovely walk around the garden, I've decided to come into the polytunnel and carry on that job I started well over a month ago and clear out some of last year's dead plants. I'm excited to get starting some seeds in little pots, and before I know it, it'll be time to plant them out. It's already nice and cosy in here during the day. As you see, I'm only wearing my top, and I'm not working hard enough to be breaking a sweat. It's just a comfortable working temperature in here. Everything's too wet and drippy outdoors to be doing much of anything. And they forecast more rain to come for at least another week. We always get a decent amount of rainfall here in the UK, but this winter in particular has been extremely wet. I've not heard of any particular flooding problems, but here in the southwest it seems to have been a winter of constant showers of rain. Talking of which, here comes some more. No, I haven't increased the volume, it just got heavier.
They said heavy showers. This is certainly heavy. Glad I'm in here. They're pouring off the walls. Look at it, just streaming down the sides like a river. Wow. Right, let's put you back. I might have to switch your sound off and put you in. Give me some music.
It's very nice being in the polytunnel gardening when it's tipping down with rain outside. Definitely one of its major advantages. Not only good for the plants, but good for me too. At At last, things have quietened down and the sun shines back out again.
I found an onion. Very edible still. Done well in here over the winter. And quite a few foxgloves. Very healthy specimen. But I don't want them in here. Actually, I've left one growing in the far corner of a bed because they do look pretty. And yes, I could replant this outdoors. It would probably do just fine. But quite frankly, I don't have the time. I have enough chosen plants to plant. I've been to the garden centre and bought lots of dahlias for this year. Well, I say lots. About 6 or 7 different varieties. So I plan to be growing lots of dahlias. Not necessarily in here. I may plant 1 or 2 in here. Most of them I'm planning for outdoors. Ooh, this is putting up a little shoot. It's starting to grow again already. Now, if I plant it, it will probably, although it's small, I suspect it will go to seed and flower.
This year in the polytunnel, as in many years past, I plan to be growing lots of peas because they're a big favourite with me and the grandchildren. I'm also planting sweet corn, gherkins and tomatoes. Oh, and lettuce. I surprisingly like lettuce lots. A particular favourite of mine is lettuce served with a seafood dressing made from mayonnaise and tomato sauce and a light sprinkling of paprika. So that'll be my basic staples sorted. I'm not sure what else I might choose to grow in here, possibly a dahlia plant or 2. And I'm sure the pineapple lilies will be back for another growing season.
It seems a shame to be pulling up this lush green white flowery plant, but I know it sets seed quite happily all over the polytunnel. There's actually a couple of big clumps behind you, and I know it seeds freely everywhere in here, so I have every confidence it'll be back this summer with a vengeance, and I don't have to do anything to encourage it.
Carrying on at this rate, I'm going to need a bigger wheelbarrow. But then I suppose if I had a bigger wheelbarrow, it would get too heavy to manoeuvre anywhere. So I'll just have to make do with lots of trips to the compost pile.
Oh, you're miles away. Now the plant I have just been cutting down. I don't know if you saw it, I was so far away. This stump of remaining plant here that I have just been cutting all its tops off of, big hefty stems, is actually fennel. And it's already putting up little tiny shoots of new growth. I don't know if we'll get a late frost that it might not like too much, but here in the polytunnel it's pretty well protected, and I allow it to grow year after year. So this plant is probably about 3 years old now. I eat its fresh green shoots, I eat its flowers and its seeds, along with its fluffy leaves. I eat its fresh green fluffy leaves in salads, drop some into a soup. Each time I come into the polytunnel, I'm usually munching on some of its little fluffy leaves, some flowers or seeds. It's just a tasty bit of deliciousness, a tasty bit of aniseedy yum. What I have come across in my clearing of the polytunnel, well, come across is the wrong word. I knew it was here. One of my thornless blackberries has managed to find its way in here. I'm not entirely sure how, but here it is. I spotted it as a young plant, only 6 inches tall, last spring. And this has been last year's growth. Still got very green leaves on it. And I'm really not sure if I want it here. I can't quite decide whether to pull it up or let it keep growing and fruit for me this year. It should fruit this year. It didn't fruit last year. One of its long traily stems had wound itself around the back of these support poles. I'm thinking I might actually tie it onto those to pull it back and keep it out of my way. Actually rooted in a path or an edge of a raised bed rather than in my actual raised beds, so it won't be taking up valuable garden space. Yes, I'm going to tie it onto these support rails for now. See how much trouble it gives me. I might regret doing that because it's already pretty huge. Though, as a thornless blackberry, no prickles, so that's okay. Yes, I'm going to tie it in against this back wall. Side wall, side wall. Ugh. Wow, it's putting up a fight. There we go. There, that's tied it in for a minute. So hopefully if it behaves itself and stays back here, I'll let it stay and see what it does. If it starts becoming a trouble, I shall just cut it down and rip it out. I've left this particular raised bed with its trellis and its dead pea stalks and last year's tomato vines all tangled round it, because I've noticed that in here, if I can get in here, this flash of green, and over there, and there's one more further down. These green leafed plants, actually passion fruit plants that I started from seed, from store-bought passion fruit last spring. And I'm quite surprised to see they're still here, green and lush. Now they have been overwintering not only in the polytunnel, but with this cover of dead plant from last year's growing. I've actually added some extra twigs to it. These are bits of dead seeded lettuce head. They've survived this long, so hopefully they'll make it into next season. I don't know if I'll ever get fruit from them, but even a flower would be nice. And I don't know how many years they might have to grow before we get any fruits or flowers. I will have to investigate. I was just having fun growing fruit seeds. So for now, I'm going to leave this to create protection for these plants. They've survived this far through our winter, so I don't want to disrupt their environment now. Finally, looking cleared and ready for a new gardening season. I do have a little bit left to do on the other side. One raised bed, 2 raised beds. There's the raised bed I'm leaving on purpose to protect those delicate little plants. Well, maybe not that delicate. They've survived thus far. Perhaps they're tougher than I imagined. So bye for now, and we'll see you next time. Remember, whatever you're doing, have fun doing it.
If you've enjoyed today's video, click that like button and let me know. Click subscribe and YouTube will make sure you see my next video. Bye for now and thanks for watching. And don't forget, whatever you're doing, have fun doing it.